Good afternoon. The 2022 Gmsd District and Board Strategic Plan Review is now in session.
So first, I just want to welcome y'all. This is always an exciting time for us. Thank you for bearing with us. As you know, we don't have internet in several of our schools or the central office today, so this is being recorded so that we can post it online. But I did want to thank the entire cabinet and Ms. Crowder for all the work that they have done to put together the books for you today that you're going to see. Just some housekeeping notes. Fabulous QR codes, so if you have your phone and you want to see electronic versions of the books that are in front of you or the presentations that you're seeing today, we are going to post those, but know that you can see those here electronically. So if you want to follow along with your phone or with the book, you're welcome to do so. We are starting with our review of the annual report, and it looks like this. And we're going to have our cabinet members come up and share out some of the work that ties to our strategic plan and the success that they've had.
Okay, so I'm going to encourage you to use your phone because you won't see the wonderful graphics and the Saved by the Bell effect without the phone. I mean, I'm joking around, but I actually chose my theme, thinking through remembering your why. I was that person in school. I don't know if you asked my high school teachers, because I think I was probably a little different then, but I loved school supplies and notebooks and pens and pencils. And as a teacher, I couldn't wait to get to the learning house and set up my theme for the new year. And, you know, I think one of the things that COVID, the past couple years we've been through, is kind of forgetting what brought us to the education profession. And so our focus in ESE and through this year has been really remembering your why. So one of our whys, obviously, is our kids at school. So you'll see some of our recent graduates from Houston High School. One of our students who will be employed after he transitioned out. Some of our students that volunteer at our preschool classrooms. And so they just really bring us to work every day and remind us why we're doing what we're doing. Another reason is our babies at home. So these are some of my department students. I actually don't. I was like, I don't even have a picture of my department in here except for Miss Coleman, but she really is the mom of all of us. So these, yeah, one of them looks exactly like me. You probably can tell which one's that. But no, these are some of the reasons, you know, the kids at school, the kids at home. We really want to celebrate what we've been able to do with keeping those kids, those students that we're serving in mind. So I'm going to briefly go through our celebrations through Goal 1, 2, 4, and 5, and just highlight, I think the long list is in the annual report, so this is just a couple things that I wanted to pick out and highlight. So first with Goal 1, when you're looking at addressing learning loss. So this is something that started 2 years ago when we returned in person that we continued this year because we saw the benefits with Saturday school. One might think, why would a kid want to come to school on a Saturday? But we have a huge turnout. It's a great opportunity for small group instruction for kids that just need a little bit more than maybe, you know, okay, I didn't get this concept in math. Well, we've been able, like at the high school, we pull in some of our gen ed teachers. They laugh at me. Our last Saturday school, I was in charge of trying to help one of our friends with geometry, and I was Googling all of the concepts. I was like, I haven't done geometry for like 20-something years. And she's like, come here, Sarah, let me help you out. So really relying on those experts to get in the nitty-gritty with kids that may need a little bit more. It was really important at Houston High School to offer additional Saturday schools for grade recovery, knowing that we want to continue that, you know, graduation rate and prevent dropout. So in Goal 2, another big focus was around emotional and behavior support. So enhancing wellness, balance, and learning for students through a focus on social emotional learning. We have done that by supporting students with a social emotional teacher that both pushed in to provide services and did a separate classroom when students needed that support. We also were able to hire an additional behavior paraprofessional. And what's great about those paraprofessionals is, again, they're coaching and ensuring that those behavior plans are being implemented with fidelity across the district. We contracted with 3 different agencies this year. Behavior Services of the Mid-South, they provided us with 2 licensed clinical social workers at Houston High School because the need was more than we could even gravitate to. I'm sure Mr. Bland's department could also speak to that, but just really wanted to make sure that our students had the support they needed. Catapult Learning provided a social emotional counselor who was also SPED certified, so she could go in and provide any of those behavior services or help those general ed teachers to ensure students are staying in their least restrictive environment. And last, an additional board certified behavior analyst. I realized I used acronyms on here, which is a no-no, so I apologize. But we do have one on staff, but knew that that additional one who's a former coworker from Shelby County Schools, we knew she was fantastic. I'm like, yes, ma'am, we want you here helping out our kids. So that was a big, big help. In goal 4, when we talk about allocating our resources for the strategic plan, I wanted to highlight the Esser Expenditures. Esser 1 and 3 really did do so much in the areas of providing support in goal 1 and 2 when we think about the additional 2 school psychologists that those monies have provided, a homebound teacher for those students that weren't ready to, or maybe have some kind of medical need that prevented them from returning to school with COVID. I also just highlighted the pie chart because I'm a little bit of a dork when it comes to data, and I think that in the annual report it gets a little bit more deep, but this is just showing a mental health breakdown of what our school psychs were able to do this year with that addition. So they weren't just evaluating students, they were actually able to get in and provide some individual therapy, teacher supports, and such. And lastly, with goal 5, when we're thinking through actively seeking feedback for any of our district level initiatives, it was very important to me with the federal money coming in that I heard from the staff serving the students, as well as administrators, clericals, paraprofessionals, what can I do to make your job easier? I want to retain you. We have, just different things going on with education and the way things have changed. How can we retain our teachers and ensure that we get their input when we're expending the additional monies? So at the beginning of the year, we sent out, because not only did we have Esser 1 and 3 monies, but we also had American Rescue Plan funding. So we sent out just a survey asking them, what is it that would make your job easier? So some of those options were iPads for paraprofessionals, and what those would be utilized for is taking data, easing communication that's traditionally done on paper, additional teacher discretionary money, so we always provide that, but giving money in addition to that for them to be able to purchase things for their classroom, creating audio enhanced classrooms across the district, and bringing back the work day one time a semester for assessing students, writing IEPs, all that jazz. So the results came back. The only thing we did not do on the list that was sent of options that staff chose were the audio enhanced classrooms. We were really teetering back and forth, but felt like the need for that social emotional support outweighed the audio enhanced classrooms, which will be really cool one day, and we'll look at it moving forward. But that was kind of like we really need this, we kind of want that. So sometimes you have to weigh that out when you're budgeting. So that was really important to us to start the year. At the end of the year, so before teachers left, we sent out another survey to all staff asking, how can we improve as a department? What does support look like? What do you need for us to do differently? We changed up how we were providing services this year and just wanted to see, does it work better for you to have one person assigned to your school that is your go-to for everything? Or is it better for us to divide up by co-teaching or preschool, or how does that work for you, and which one has been better? And so they were really able to kind of give us, here's what went well, here's what PD I need, this is our preference for support. And what we're doing right now is analyzing those results, using that to determine what summer professional development that we're going to do. And then any supports that they asked for, like one was like, I need to know who does what when. I think we take a lot of things for granted, thinking, oh, everybody knows such and such. They've been here forever. But with a lot of different and new staff, making sure everyone knows who to go to is important. And then we're going to share that at end service. And it's not going to work on here, but hopefully on your phone you can pull up the video.
Oh, cool.
So my last slide is a video of some of our students performing. They actually dance at my daughter's studio. Students at our high school that are dancing. So it's just the last one says, remember your why. And that was all. That's it.
So we really have time for questions, and as you can see, and we'll follow the same format as we're going through, we were struggling with how do we put together a book for you, but also do presentations by department. So what she's tried to do is say, okay, in this objective, here's how we've accomplished it. But you see when we have one objective, so like 5.4.1, you see her stuff included in there, but the goal here with her presentation was to just pull out where she wanted to give a little more detail than you could do in a report like this. So that everybody's going to try to give you a little more detail than what's in this. What's in the? Yes.
So, because we will all take this back and pour over it in more detail, will we still be able to?
Yes. So you have access to, yes.
Okay, excellent.
So you have access to presentation and hard and electronic copies. Any questions for Ms. Huffman about special education or where we want to go? Or?
With the audio enhanced classrooms, would you talk a little bit more about that and what kind of
Investment? It's a good investment.
well, it is a very good investment. I just was
No, expensive.
It's pretty expensive. I will tell you, initially, and this was a year ago, it was around 120. I have a feeling it's much, much more, knowing construction costs have gone up. But it involves, I don't know if I'm telling y'all things you already know, but a speaker in the classroom, and then the teacher wears a microphone. And if you know anyone that uses an FM system, so studies have shown that it really benefits all kids, not just students that have hearing impairs, because it brings that voice closer in and enhances like students that have language disorders or disabilities. So
that was 120,000, not 120.
Oh yes, not $120. That would be 120,000
per classroom.
No, this was for 6 classrooms. So it's not terrible.
Still, it's
But it's still a lot when you're looking at contracting services. So, I mean, that's the one.
20,000 per classroom.
It's still 20,000 per classroom. But the studies have shown, like, our hope was, like, in co-teaching classrooms where we know there's a mix of students, that would be a great place to trial it, knowing we couldn't have it in every grade level, every building, but just seeing if there was a benefit to that. So I'm not getting rid of it, but just not yet.
I think we've touched on I've expressed my personal appreciation for the Saturday school and our family and the benefits that were seen as a result of that opportunity. Moving forward, or I guess this year compared to the prior year, did you find that more people were, I guess, included or involved in that opportunity?
I would say absolutely at the high school. I think the word spread and they're like, hey, so-and-so is going to be at Saturday school and they'll help you. And kids really had the option, like if they drove, maybe they just needed help with one assignment and they could drive up do their thing and leave. Some of the teachers brought donuts. I mean, that sounds really silly, but like, of course, your younger kids aren't seeing the direct benefit. It's a lot of time the parents or caregivers that are like, hey, you're going to go do this, and this is going to be a good thing. But I think anything we can do proactively, like this isn't an IEP service. It's not something we're required to do by the State Department. This is just an addition trying to help support families. And as long as we have teachers that are willing, to work it and funding, and it's something that parents are finding as a support. But I would say absolutely the high school, like it caught on, and we had some students without IEPs that joined us that asked, hey, can we come? We're like, absolutely. So it
When you hear
spread.
grade recovery at that level, it's like, oh, wait, and it is a lot of one-on-one, depending on, and so, like you said, they may come and just have to knock out something that they really needed that special attention for and be finished. Whereas the younger ones, I think that for the middle schoolers, I heard from several who thought it was cool that the high school teachers were the ones that were helping
That were
them.
providing
They're
the
like,
service. Yeah.
That teacher's
We're
from
gonna
the
see
high
them
school.
later.
I'm gonna see them in preview coming attractions, but really kind of got, involved in that way, more just attached to just the work. And so, but it did seem, just what I heard in the community, more and more people became aware and were able to
Good.
utilize it as a great opportunity for some of that. So I really am thankful, like you said, that we're able to do it funding-wise and have to staff it, but that the need is certainly there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before you go, I was going to say, just from, I know my personal experience, so many of our counselors have been so helpful with all of our students this year, and with the just increased use of them, I'm glad we were able to have additional ones here, and I know that work's continuing as we go forward, and just happy that we have that available.
What he said.
All right. Oh, good. So I'm excited to share how the TLA, Teaching, Learning, and Assessment Department efforts connect to the district strategic plan this year. So when you look at our team, I couldn't do anything without them. We are a unit who has accomplished so much this year. So throughout my summary today, I'm going to keep saying we and us, and this is who I'm talking about. I'm truly blessed with the highly effective team, and everything you see here is not my work all alone. It is a joint effort. And I especially have to give a shout out to Megan Gashler for her Canva mad skills. So I'll go back to our mission. So our mission, you can see, we guide, we facilitate, we support multiple stakeholders. You got your students, you've got your families. Hello, Mr. Curry. Okay, students, families, teachers, administrators. So we have a variety of different stakeholders that we're supporting. So it's unique in that we truly want to impact staff so they can have that impact on students, so that each child is ultimately equipped to go onto their chosen path. So our theme this year as a team has been to encourage, equip, and empower. And we've said it over and over again. Those have been our 3 E's. We incorporated it into our District Learning Day in November because encouraging is all about building relationships. And we have found that that's what we needed to kind of step back and do this year, was to take the time to say, hey, how can we help? Before we went in with all of our state initiatives, we worked on building relationships. So we had to have that encouraging aspect. And the equip part is just we've got to provide teachers with the resources and the tools so they can do their job. So that is where we come in. We equip them so that they can serve students. And then empowering speaks for itself. If we're accomplishing those things, then they will be empowered to do their job effectively for the students. So my presentation today focuses on goal 1, so our engaging, challenging, innovative academics. So while academics is found in all parts of the strategic plan, the highlights that we pulled from the big booklet that you have all revolve around goal 1. So our objective, this goes along with what Ms. Huffman just did in the ESE presentation. Objective 1.2 is one of the main ones we want to highlight. It is so essential that we ensure equitable outcomes for all students and work to narrow the achievement gap as seen in student subgroups data. So we're connecting this to the foundational learning, early literacy and numeracy. That's been one of the main things we've heard about through legislation this year. I'm going back and forth because I want to be sure I don't leave out any critical points here. We had a hard time narrowing down our focus this year. So when I finally looked at it, I was like, what are our 3 areas? Well, one of them is foundational learning. Our other area you're going to hear about today is curriculum implementation, because there have been a lot of state laws around that. And how do you implement the curriculum through professional development? And then the final part we're going to emphasize today is on PLCs. That's one of those acronyms. I think many of you probably know what it stands for. Does anybody know what it stands for? Ms. Oaf? Professional learning communities, yes. So when we talk about the things that we do, it's going to all come full circle with PLCs. So professional learning communities, we will all be PLC gurus by the end of next school year. That's one of our main areas. So back to where we're looking today. So I've got my 3 main areas: foundational learning, curriculum implementation, and PLCs. We have Mr. Manuel reading to a kindergarten class here when we visited the schools. This was at Dogwood. So we have, like I said, quite a few things that we must do to meet state compliance. And one of those revolves around our foundational literacy skills plan, our FLSP. We have to post that online for the public viewing. The state has to approve it. And this bullet point list here shows you the things that we must do within the classroom. Provide that 90 minutes of instruction, as well as small group reading time, RTI intervention. We provide benchmark assessments through STAR. The district provided AR so that students can read on their own and test their level of reading. Daily tiered interventions, TN all-core tutoring, summer success camp. So all of these things work together as a part of our foundational literacy efforts. So where does that get us?
Well, hold on, I'm going to clarify. Go back one, sorry. So just explain Orton-Gillingham real quick for the board, because I think what you'll hear touted a lot from the Department of Education is they're trying to do a copy of what we have been doing. And I don't remember the country song, I was country before country was cool. That's what I want to say about our foundational literacy. We were doing it right before they even started their early literacy initiative. So much to the point that we actually piloted Wilson Phonics and Saxon Phonics at different schools to see which one we thought would best serve our students. But we have that combination of an ELA curriculum, wit and wisdom, and we also have the phonics that goes along with it too. But more than that, we also train our teachers in Orton-Gillingham. So if you would quickly explain.
Yeah, so every RTI coach this year was trained on it if they were not already. So it is a very intense training to identify more targeted learning deficits, particularly dyslexia. So Orton-Gillingham trained staff should meet the letter of the law for early literacy, but since all teachers across the state can't go through that training, all districts don't provide that. Our staff have been trained in that to do more intense interventions. I've gone into more detail about that within the annual report you'll see when you read through there. But because all teachers across the state cannot be trained in this, we're going to also have our teachers do the state training to check the letter of the law, because I'm sure you've read in the Tennessee Literacy Success Act, all teachers must complete an approved early literacy training course. Orton-Gillingham, they told us originally they thought it might satisfy that, and now they're not approving that. So we're going to provide for all teachers free of charge and all access asynchronous course through the state to get their early early literacy. But the point that Mr. Emanuel was making is that we were already ahead of the game. Our teachers have already had the training. The results show this year, we have received raw scores for TCAP data, and while it's embargoed, I can't say much about it, but I will say that what we're doing is working. And you're going to see a little bit of that right here in these next few slides. In fact, I'm going to skip through 2 because I want to save these 2 to go to our interventions first. I want to show what we've been doing with our RTI time. So we have our amazing RTI coaches working with teachers and administering our new screener. So Ames Web is a Tennessee-approved universal screener.
That we're also required to do.
Yes. And so we benchmark 3 times a year all K through 3 students, both in literacy and in math. So on this graph, you'll see this is just our growth in Tier 1 reading. So in RTI, we have Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So students who flag below the 25th percentile receive Tier 2 and Tier 3 services. So this graph represents all the students who scored above that 25th percentile. So for example, in kindergarten, we had 64% of all kindergartners scoring at the 25th percentile or higher. That was at the fall administration of Ames Web. And then with the winter, you can see that we had a few students move out of that Tier 2, Tier 3 because the Tier 1 grew to 69%. And then in our spring, look at the jump there, 91% of our kindergartners were receiving Tier 1 services, while the other 9% are receiving Tier 2 and 3. 9% is a very small amount to receive Tier 2 and Tier 3 services in kindergarten. So the growth there, the conclusion, you can see fewer students required intervention for Tier 2, Tier 3 as the year progressed. So what does that really tell us? Well, it demonstrates that the Orton-Gillingham training is working to provide more targeted interventions for students. It demonstrates the effectiveness of our Tier 1 instruction because RTI is only 45 minutes to an hour for students. What the teachers are doing every day in the ELA and math classrooms is also causing that growth that you see here. I'll go ahead and advance to the math slide because it tells a similar story. So
And I'll jump in here too. So when we were really pushing our legislators to talk about, let us do the work, let the interventions take place, let us move students. And I think it's important to note that when they're measuring that performance in kindergarten, that's on kindergarten standards. It's not like all of a sudden they regress so much when they went to first grade. It's because there's a whole new level of expectation for them when they get to that first grade, and then we're moving them again. And that happens every single year as they're progressing through. And you've seen the data that we've shown. Let us do the work. Let us actually provide those interventions. Let our RTI coaches, our Orton-Gillingham training, our ELA teachers, that first level of Tier 1 instruction, let that take place. So these are really promising results, and so we're proud of what our teachers are doing in the classroom.
And along those lines, just to reemphasize that the Universal Screener is skills-based rather than standards-based. So we do a lot of talking about different types of assessment. So this is representing skills deficits rather than on-grade level standards. So I love to show the growth here that we've had within the Tier 1 instruction. So looking at that, I want to even capitalize on that further to jump to our STAR benchmark assessment. So when Diane Stovar, ELA supervisor, was attending some of the state early literacy trainings this year, we want to be abreast of what the state is doing, even though we know, what we're doing is better. I mean, we know we're doing great work, but there's a lot of great work going on also in the state training. So she is participating in the state training, sharing that with teachers. So anyway, this was a quote that was shared in one of those trainings. Statewide district achievement data showed only 1 out of every 3 children was reading on grade level at the end of 3rd grade. That's sad, very sad. But when I look at that, where do we stand as a district? Based on STAR assessment data, over 87% of all GMSD 1st through 3rd grade students are reading at or above grade level. So that is an exciting number for us to look at. We're not satisfied until it's 100%. That's Diane Stovall's #1 goal, all students reading on grade level. So we're working on getting there. We're excited to see this growth with our STAR reading data, by the way, is more standards-based. It's more similar to what they see on TCAP. It's a good predictor of TCAP. So that's why we do both. And it gives a grade level, an actual grade level equivalency. So sometimes we may feel like we're doing a lot of assessing, but it serves different purposes. And I know Mr. Manuel elaborates that more in his annual report there, you'll see. All of this has led us to see, as we dug into all this foundational skills, literacy data, numeracy data, if we're really going to meet Objective 1.2, ensure equitable outcomes for all students, digging into our subgroups, this has brought more to the forefront that we have got to have a data warehouse. So our team has been researching. We're in the research phase. What is a data warehouse? It's where we can house all the data for one student in one place. So if I type in a student's name, I can see their STAR data, I can see their Ames Web data, I can see their TCAP testing history, I can see attendance, I can all in one place. Because as it is right now, for example, when I'm getting all these calls about, should my child be in summer camp? I'll look up the student. I have to go to 5 or 6 different places. I go to Skyward. I go to the Ames Web platform, STAR. We go to the educator portal. I mean, so it's not efficient. We want to be efficient and better serve our students. So this is one of our big goals. As we reflected on this year, we thought, how can we tie that into where we need to go next year? So right here, we're looking at adding a data warehouse. We've narrowed it down to about 3 or 4, but we're still, like I said, in the research phase. All right, so that was really part 1, which was focusing on foundational skills. Part 2, we're shifting into what do we really do as a team? Well, curriculum implementation. So we know there was the big law passed this year about how teachers, if they were going to use supplemental resources, it had to be vetted, and it had to be an enhancement to the district purchase curriculum, the state-approved district purchase curriculum. So looking at the objectives here, we tied all this together into one under Goal 1. You've got your Objective 1.1, developing, effectively implement, and align standards-based curriculum. We're going to be looking at how that aligns to post-secondary outcomes. We're also going to looked at Objective 1.2 with data, and digging really into PD and how we are using our instructional coaches. So this kind of summarizes everything to do with implementation and PD. So as I mentioned, the state law, I have to tell you, when Valerie Speakman and I toured the schools during in-service with every school, when she was sharing all these new laws about concepts you can't talk about, I'm sure you heard from people. I'm sure you heard from teachers who were concerned. We were concerned. I did not want a teacher to enter the classroom and think that they can't talk about anything in life. You know, they need to be free to be able to speak within this law and still be the effective teachers they are. So our department created this Gmsd use of supplemental materials form that asked 3 basic questions to kind of narrow it down for them. If they're going to look up on a resource and pull supplemental resources that's not Wit and Wisdom or that's not Eureka Math, for example, they just had to ask themselves, does this resource enhance the curriculum without taking away from it? We didn't want them going down a 2-week path of something that pulled away from the pacing. Number 2, does the resource directly align to the state standards for that course? Yes? Okay, good, move on. Number 3, does the resource comply with the list provided in Section 51, Public Chapter 493, which I'm sure you are familiar with, the long list of prohibited concepts. So this form is a little snapshot of it. It actually has all of the prohibited concepts on it, so it's right there in front of them, so they don't have to think about, what were those concepts? And then if they answered no to any of those questions, then they would simply click, there's a little link in there they click, and they would enter their supplemental resource. Somebody on our team would if it was math and went to Jenny Ledford, she'd go review it and get back to them within 5 days. So that was a way we tried to make it more manageable for teachers to navigate the law, and we feel like it was a good tool for them. Moving on further with Objective 1.1.4, moving into how this prepares students for post-secondary outcomes. That's a big shift, I know, but it all falls under that Objective 1.1. We worked this year to strengthen career awareness and partnerships. That was one of Ethan Constant's big focuses that I think y'all may have heard a lot about. So we were invited to participate in a middle school career exploration collaboration, another acronym, MSCE team. So Ethan worked together to pull our department, ESE, admin from the middle schools and the high schools, counselors from the middle schools and the high schools to serve on this team. So among this team, we established a collective focus within our leadership team on career advising. So you've heard a little bit about how we had a scope and sequence. By the way, this picture is from the middle school career fair at Houston Middle, where the high school students went and helped participate with them. So we're trying to establish more of that partnership, that alignment between middle and high. So what came out of this? Well, I know you've heard about, we just want to keep talking about the increased communication and collaboration with 6 through 12 counselors, how the 8th graders took the Naviance assessment, just one assessment. That alone is not going to make all the impact we want to make. We have now developed a scope and sequence for 6 through 12 that will be implemented next school year. So by the time that, 6th graders, it travels up with them. So when they're in 7th grade, they can look back on it and reflect on what they were and then build upon with the next assessment. So each grade level has a different assessment that all work together. And we've also designed it so next year the 8th graders will take it well before course selection. So that's part of the state law, that information will be used to help them pick their high school course of study, particularly their elective focus. So this has been a huge focus for us this year. And to get movement in a direction with that many people, it takes intentional committee work like we did this year. So I feel like for the first time, our middle and high school counselors are collaborating even more so than ever before, especially focusing on career exploration.
And so when we talk about the 7th grade event that we had this year, which was the first that we've ever done that, it's more than just the community component where we're making students feel comfortable at the high school. This is paired with that career exploration. So when they've taken the Naviance assessments, they can be aware of the program, the CTE programs that we have at the high school. And actually, when they go there, they'll see the setting. So long before when their 8th grade year, when they're having to decide what's that elective that I want to take, they're going to have some real idea about what are they passionate about, but also too what's offered at the high school to meet those needs. So we're excited about how that program, that event, serves a lot of different functions in the district.
So an engaging partnership we had this year, we increased collaboration with the district and civil leadership teams. So you may have heard about this, the formation of the West Tennessee Workforce Collaborative. So we've had a preliminary meeting with them. We're looking forward to basically streamlining our efforts, engagement with the Ford NGL teams to see what do we need to be providing as far as programming so that our students can go straight to the Blue Oval City and be certified or even earn certification as they're working. We've also increased interest in student professionals such as, for example, you've heard about the CCMA exam. This year we had 13 students total. We just had one who did it after graduation as a makeup. And then focus on expanding student internships. So you're well aware of our student interns here, but we want to expand that even more so within the community, the student interns. All right, so shifting into objective 1.23. So to strengthen our instructional practices and professional growth, this goes along once again with PD opportunities. When you look in the annual plan, you're going to see that we've offered hundreds of PD sessions this year, literally hundreds. So we just wanted to narrow the focus to our intentional PD on how do we strengthen instructional practices. So we have TCAP standards analysis that we did with each school. We have restructuring RTI Tier 1 instruction so that they had more reading opportunities. Module deep dives, that involves wit and wisdom. There's a summary also about wit and wisdom and how we removed one of the modules so that they could go deep dive with the 3 remaining modules. You can read about that further in the annual plan. And our target-based grading focus groups. So as you know, we're shifting to the standards-based grading report card for K through 3 next year, the new one. So we've had a lot of PD centered around that. When I get to the instructional coaches, I'll share a little bit more about that. So speaking of the instructional coaches, this aligns to one of our objectives to provide support for teachers. Well, we did that this year through the 2 instructional coaches, and I could have tied this to goal 4 with the financial also because we used Esser funds to help pay for those instructional coaches. And you may have heard of Gina Witzel and Karen Barberry. So these are some of the things that they accomplished this year. This is their year at a glance summarized. So you can look through here and see the impact they had. I won't sit and read everything through their coaching, their PLC meetings, and their PD. So they focused on, of course, we have an ELA math coach K through 8 and an ELA coach and a math coach. So they did a survey at the end of this school year. You can see the results there, and I meant to bring my phone up to read some of their quotes. Just want to read a few of these because they're so impactful. So feedback from teachers is extremely important, and they wanted to know what can we do to strengthen next year? What can we do to support you? What helped? And so some of the feedback they received, even though this is not my first or even my fifth year teaching, I was most impressed with being taught how to interpret data during our data digs. This was so helpful when determining RTI groups, small groups, differential instruction, and activities. I feel so much more confident after your help. You have truly helped me grow, and I'm continuing to grow because of you. We also had somebody say that the in-person visits and coaching were most helpful because they asked what specifically helped. They said the in-person visits and coaching. Having you in the classroom and implementing strategies in real time was beneficial for me as it allowed me to see exactly what it looks like within my own classroom. So there was a lot more feedback than that, but we just wanted to see that, yes, these instructional coaches are making an impact in the K through 8 ELA and math world, and wanted to share that work, which I'm wrapping it up here. I know mine's been a little bit longer. So the work to make all of this happen comes back to those PLCs that we were just talking about, professional learning communities. So the district leadership team partnered with school leadership teams, and we attended a conference with Solution Tree. It's one of the most reputable PLC companies out there. So every objective that we want to accomplish to improve student outcomes connected to the strategic plan, whether it's foundational skills, curriculum implementation, professional development, everything must all be rooted in authentic PLC work. So we've had PLCs in our district and well before, way back in Shelby County. But we want to do is, you can see here, revisioning. Let's get back to what they really are about. How does collaboration really look? Are we making an impact on every student? So before we even can jump into how do we make this happen, we need to make sure everybody understands. Every teacher needs to understand what is a PLC. So we asked our assistant principals at one of our leadership meetings, and these were some of their responses here that you can see. But I took all of their responses. We had about 20 responses and a little word cloud. What do you see that stands out at the center? The students. I mean, that's what it's all about. You can see other words such as collaboration, learning, outcomes. So if it's focused on all of us working together, all of the students are ours, making an impact on those student outcomes, we can talk about that, but how does that really look? And so that's what's going to be our focus for next year. The timeline is in here, so I won't read it to you, but we do have an intentional timeline to make this work happen. So one of our mottos is we're going to get started and we're going to get better. Because when we first looked at our plan, it literally was a 5-year plan, a little bit overwhelming when you start to think, how are you going to break it down and start making it happen? So we're not going to accomplish it all in 1 year. So we're going to have to focus on certain areas. So we're going to get started, we're going to get better. So I'm clicking through here just so you can see the various timeline started from last March to the summer to this August. We already have plans in place. So we're excited about the work that's going to unfold. And it's only the beginning. And what I wanted to also point out to you is that, yes, we do have collaboration. Sometimes bad habits can develop that might need to be tweaked. And so we're going to go back to just kind of a reset. Like, what do we need to be doing within our PLC? So that connected to the part of the strategic plan that we didn't even touch on last year. And that was establishing accountability protocols for PLCs, Objective 1.1.3 that I was showing you. So this is how we're going to make it happen. We're going to provide that structure. You probably have seen standards for a course that are just pages and pages long. So that's overwhelming for a teacher to try to tackle. So we're going to be focusing on essential learning targets. What are the non-negotiables that a student must have before they leave your class? Every student sitting in the chair, what must they know? So we're going to work with teacher teams, collaborative teams to develop these essential targets. And like I said, we're going to get started. We're not going to do it all in 1 year. So that's going to be our focus. And also within those PLCs, you've got to work with some common assessments. our benchmarks provide that, but also we need just module common assessments. So we're going to start with our K through 3 implementation next year with target-based grading. We need to have common assessments. So you can see here that with our instructional supervisors, coaches, and lead teachers, we'll be developing those common assessments because we're going to get started and we're going to get better and we're going to make an impact on all students. So.
Are there questions?
Thank you, Ms. Ava. I appreciate your detail. And I think that I really appreciate you kind of diving down into the staff training on the Orton Gillingham. That's something that we've talked to legislators about in my experience for years that really separates our district from others around the state. And when we're talking to people in the community, because especially for those lower grades, maybe people that haven't truly been identified with certain deficiencies or deficits, I should say rather, if a parent is trying to appreciate what the, I guess, trained staff has that maybe makes us different and give them a little more confidence because of that, how would you best describe, like, hey, so if you have a second grader and they're not 100% sure what's going on with their reading or just the way they read, for instance, then that, what's an example of how that might be, I guess, expressed in the classroom, but also like to families as more of a service that we offer because our staff is trained additionally?
So if a parent was to ask a teacher, I would currently want to know, are they, what level they were on and are they receiving any interventions? But I don't know if I understood exactly your.
Make sure, because it's something that really is unique to us, I feel like, and I think that we need to maybe promote that more in a way that's a little clearer to the community.
Yeah, I would say it's strategies to teach reading. And so I think examples of the shaving cream on the desks, which is a kinesthetic activity where they're learning sounds and they're also doing activity. It's teaching strategy, but for those students who may have, everybody learns differently, and what you talk about auditory processing, regardless of how they learn, they're going to be shown the standards in different ways using different strategies.
So then, and I apologize because I wasn't asking it very specifically, because we do get that when the dyslexia word comes up in the community. That gets brought up a lot, and I remind people that, hey, one thing that we are doing at this K through 2 level that is really special and very pointed is this. And so I think it's really nice to, again, let folks know that, hey, you're not just walking into somebody that maybe doesn't fully appreciate, and that we really are the differentiated. Y'all know I hammer that because to me, I think that is something that we really, really, really do well in our district, and that's really try to get everybody where they are. I'm talking about the little kids now in a minute. There's another part here that I really want to point out that you really hit on, where we do that at the upper level, because that's over time. It's really been like, we're getting these people what they need, but what are we doing in the middle? And we are really doing a lot in the middle.
Yes. And I think the focus too is also around the different sources of data that we have. So if a child were dyslexic, we're going to catch them in a net, and depending on what net we're using. So it may be through the universal screener, it may be through the benchmark testing, it may be through common assessments in the classroom, but they're gonna find those areas for students who are struggling. And something else that makes us special is the fact that we do have Rti coaches in all of our schools that are assisting with that data interpretation with the teachers and staff too, and say, hey, let's look at these students that are in your classroom and let's talk about how they're learning. And so when you talk about the tiers of instruction that come through the RTI time that's required at all the schools, they're getting a deeper dive. And so you're getting that smaller group. So if they're tier 2 or tier 3, and maybe they're not as successful there, but even for the students who are in that middle of the pack, they all have that present level of performance. And so we're either looking to enrich them and move them further, or looking to provide that remediation.
We did find with Ames Web that it actually flagged more students than Easy CBM was. Okay. And so that's why we had the larger percent in the kindergarten, the first and the second. And because we do have Orton Gillingham interventions that are so targeted to identify dyslexia or other deficits, teachers were able to drill down and move them out of that tier 2 or tier 3. So Ames Web did identify more.
Really pushing.
Okay. Thank you
I was
all.
just going to make one last comment. I'm excited about the data warehouse. It will make all the difference.
Absolutely. Save hours of time and be more efficient.
Yes.
You mentioned on the data warehouse front that that's something y'all are sorting through to try to identify the way you want to go with that, and then that would be something later that would be brought to us from a fiscal standpoint, because that sounds like an efficiency that could just take us to the next level.
Absolutely. No warehouse is perfect, so we're trying to just find the best one.
I had a couple of questions on the supplemental materials
Yes.
part, because that received so much focus earlier in the year on the legislative front and just the time it took. And I wondered, how much admin time did that really take, to get any supplemental materials approved or that sort of thing?
So it was not, at the beginning of the year, we thought this is all we're going to do all year. It was not as intense. I think it helped teachers to have to ask those 3 questions to not even bother submitting some things. And the things that they did submit, we only had 45 submissions through the entire school year. So it was not too labor intensive on our part, or the teachers at least knew, okay, if you're in doubt, maybe you shouldn't use it.
And I think the other piece here too is for our district, I really am proud of the curriculum that we choose and use that meets all of the standards. And so what you'll find in a lot of other districts when they have a curriculum that doesn't quite meet the standards, that's when you see teachers reaching out to find some other supplemental materials that they need to bring in. For a lot of our teachers, they can stick straight with our Eureka Math or Wit and Wisdom, and that's going to meet their needs.
So overall, would you say there was less use of supplemental materials this past year than years previous?
I would say yes.
And I guess do you or, do our teachers see that as detrimental, or, what's the effect really on our students from
Only if, like Mr. Manuel was saying, the curriculum provided is not strong or easy to use or accessible. So not every curriculum is perfect at the high school level, and so they may have to supplement a little bit more. But K through 8, it's solid enough that they don't have to go hunting and looking. But we still want them to have creativity and enhance. That's our key word: enhance the curriculum.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abel.
But it will be after my computer's done.
So what I decided to do was to let a couple members of my team talk to you guys and explain some of the exciting things that they were able to put into place this year. So we will start with Mr. Martin. Come on, you can come here.
Okay. Big seat. All right. So I'm excited about what am I talking about? So I'm excited to talk to y'all about Strategic Plan 2.2.2, and specifically for that, what we rolled out last year and really saw it flourish a lot this year was our bike safety and education program. We have it at almost every single school. Houston Middle School is our last school we're working on getting funding. And speaking of funding, we were able to work with Dr. Fuller and get most of what we needed through title funding. And I use also my coordinated school health budget to get things in place for that. But even just getting the materials, there was still a lot of work that we needed to get laid out just to make this successful. Planning ahead. So what we did is I had a couple meetings with Mayor Mike Palazzolo, and we kind of picked each other's brains because he has a bike safety and pedestrian commission. So we were thinking of ways that we could support one another. And from there, we partnered with, from his advice, we partnered with the Memphis Hightailers. So what they do is they do all the physical skill training for our PE teachers. And I use the Shape America. They have a bikeology manual, so we use bikeology as our curriculum.
So I will say that this could also be in the community partnerships, and I think that's one of Mr. Martin's strengths is he's always going out there and getting different opportunities for our staff and different programs for our students. This would be an example of a community partnership also.
Yes, sir. And one of the things I love about this program and some of the other things that we do and always trying to look for things to have staff and students active is we want them to be active outside of the school setting. We want them to be active learners for life. We all have seen evidence in pie charts and graph and data of how students learn better when they're active on a regular basis. And then you see the data and evidence of how whether it's staff and families, how that lowers insurance and health costs. So anything that we can do to plug that in to have people being active for life, that's our ultimate goal. And then the last point I wanted to make is whenever I first brought this idea up to Mr. Bland and we talked to Mr. Manuel about it, he was excited and had buy-in. And one of the things that he wanted to make sure that we did is that every student was engaged and had an opportunity to participate. And we were able to collaborate with Ms. Huffman's department and make sure that we were making the necessary accommodations, and that beautiful bike at the top was purchased by Ms. Huffman's department to make sure that all of our students were able to participate.
Questions for Mr. Martin?
I just want to thank you. The community buy-in was real, and it was a topic of conversation all throughout, and y'all did a great job promoting it, but not only just in the beginning, but also expanding it. And I'm just so thankful that we are going to have healthy and safe bikers.
Yeah, and good thinking for engaging the city. I think there's a lot of potential there with those partnerships, and I commend your being proactive and reaching out to the mayor, and I'm glad that we were able to collaborate on that. So great work there.
Thank you.
I'd also just highlight the CPR training for all the students. I mean, what didn't we have? Was it Mr. Manguso's daughter who saved someone's life or something like that?
Yes,
based on that training?
we've had several. Were there 3 students who saved?
I mean, that's real. I still want to take a class, Mr. Martin. We kept planning. We kept having our board meetings on the same night that he was doing the CPR training. But I do still keep me on the list, Mr. Martin.
And that's also, like we said, they're pulling out some snapshots. This is not everything that they're doing in all their departments. There's a lot. That's one that's also mentioned when you look through the books. The fact that we had 7th graders that were certified, that's the first time that we've done that this year. But we also have freshmen and juniors. And the goal here, when you look at the numbers that are matriculating through our system, that we're going to have adults who have that certification, and people are going to be saving lives because of it.
Yes, and it's helpful that once you enter the 7th grade, we will have students from 7th through 12th that are certified and trained. We'll go to social emotional learning, just a program that Ms. Diaz was able to put into schools this year.
You're so welcome. Hello, everybody. So I'm focusing in on 2.3.3, which is provide social and emotional education and support for all students by proactively implementing programs, strategies, and activities. So what we have done is back in October, November, I think you heard Mr. Manuel speak about, I'm doing it, sorry. You heard Mr. Manuel speak about Character Strong. What we love about Character Strong, it is a pre-K through 12 SEL curriculum where teachers can use this as a resource to supplement things in the classroom as far as teaching social emotional learning. So it is unique because it is purposeful people for elementary grades. The middle school has a different curriculum, and the high school has even a different curriculum, so very specific to each grade band. And the thing that we love about this are the outcomes: engagement, sense of belonging, and well-being, which to me exactly explains what Whole Child is all about. Every Monday with this program, the staff receive a Character Strong weekly. It's like, to me, a 2 or 3 minute PD every Monday, where a strategy or idea is given to them about how they can improve, transform their learning environment. And this one is about how to use the Post-it. So it has a strategy that teachers can use to help students, and this is basically complimenting students, not directly, in an indirect kind of matter. So again, a quick idea every week, so we love that. So how are schools using Character Strong? Different schools are doing different things to supplement things. This one, the Bark and Order, the Case of Gratitude, and the Character Chronicles, this is from an elementary school. So what they have done, these are actual videos. These are actual videos, and what they have done, the students have not only created, but they've role-played in these actual cases of Bark and Order. And in the video, you can hear the Law and Order music thing. Yes. In the middle school and high school, one of the things we focused in on were the character dares. After every session, as they call them, they're not called lessons because students did not want that to feel like school, so these are called sessions. And to implement what they are learning, how to make friends or perspective taking, whatever the actual session is about, there is a character dare that they ask students by choice, volunteer, to participate in to basically show that they have basically learned that, I guess, skill, if you want to say in a better lack of the word. So these are some examples of a middle school character dare. Is notice someone in your school who you might need to spend a little bit more time with and basically speak to them, get to know them. The high school has character dares that not only are for students, but are for the staff, because we can't model SEL ourselves to students if we don't know what SEL is all about. So this character dares, the one in red especially I like, it is asking our teachers to talk 5 to 10 minutes to their students a little bit about why did they become a teacher? Why is that meaningful to them in their lives? And that gives students a sense of purpose. So that is modeling that for the students. So these are the ways that the different schools have used examples, and it's all focusing in on relationships, because that has been, as we know, Mr. Manuel's key, connecting with students. How are we connecting with students? Well, you connect with students by building relationships. When you build relationship, you increase engagement. When you increase engagement, you increase learning. So this activity is a relational activity from the elementary level, and it is a hot air balloon. And do I have a volunteer, board members, to answer that question? What 2 things and 1 person would you bring here and why? Any volunteers to tell me?
Who's going to answer? Somebody. There's going to be other opportunities. So this is the elementary one. You may want to jump on now. There's a middle and high school one.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. I'll answer. I would bring my husband, a bottle of champagne, and a picnic basket of like bread and cheeses and things like that.
Would you like to share the why?
For a lovely date night or date day, because we don't get many of those.
Anybody else? Same question? So teachers start lessons with this opener, and again, that's building a connection with our students, building relationships with our students, and that non-academic approach, that social-emotional learning approach, gets everybody at ease, builds those relationships, build those connections with each other. All right, let's move on to middle and high. So these are choices that middle schoolers have. They're get-to-know-you games, and the high schoolers have connections. I have chosen Deck of Destiny, and it is in 7th grade, Deck of Destiny, and in 12th grade, there's also a Deck of Destiny activity. So a 7th grade get-to-know-you question. How does a person become courageous? And what makes you feel courageous? Any 7th grade volunteers? Okay, think about that, and we'll go on to the 12th grade. Connecting for 12th grade, again, what is something you look for in a friend, and why? Would you rather? All right. Well, any questions? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for the examples on that. I think this topic in particular seems to be one, I guess we'll just say there's some misunderstanding or maybe misinterpretation around this. I mean, based on what we're seeing there, I don't see that leading to indoctrination or anything of the sort, which seems to be the narrative these days. I do think we as a district have to be prepared to answer questions on this in particular, because that seems to be where the latest questioning of public education is coming from, that the insinuation is that we're indoctrinating kids or whatever. But I again, with those kind of questions, I think it gets the students to think. And I can only imagine some of the answers at the elementary level about the hot air balloon. So, no, I appreciate that. I think this is pretty important work that we're doing. And again, like I said, I think just be prepared because from what I'm seeing, that's the next round of attacks coming on this. It's coming around that. And again, anything that we can do, either from a proactive standpoint or just be prepared to answer questions on this. I think we'll be well served by doing that.
Sure.
I think part two of what we can work with our administrators on is sharing examples. When you see the real lessons and you see the activities, you see exactly what you said. It's about good citizenship.
Do we post the example of the lessons anywhere where parents can access them by their child's grade level?
I think that's something that we can look at
into
as long as
that.
we're staying within copyright. Yeah.
Copyright, yeah.
Depending on copyright. I think that would be beneficial to be able to direct interested parents to a particular example so they could be reassured.
Right. I'm sure we could, definitely.
Great. Thank you.
Guys.
Okay, one more section. That's my section, and I'll go quickly.
You got about
2 minutes. I'm gonna speed read through this.
Yeah, Missy gobbled your time up.
Yeah, thanks, Missy. Hey,
We had questions for her too.
what?
Every year, Missy.
Well, it used to be Dan, and then it kind of transitioned, I guess. Yeah.
No offense, but she is faster than me.
Yeah. Well, I'll go quickly so we can finish up. But Mr. Curry, we absolutely, with the things going on in today's society, we definitely need to stay safe and secure. Before we start, Mr. Curry is only pancakes. That's the answer to that. That's it.
Team waffle over here.
Team both.
So back to, you just mentioned social emotional learning. I will try to stick to the script. Ms. Stratton taught me you stick to this and you can get all your points across. So I'm going to read from this script. Feeling safe and secure in school is something that shouldn't be taken for granted, and it oftentimes is taken for granted. So each year, Student Services, in particular, Mr. Crump and I, we take a look at what we do, what's happening in society, and we make changes to strategies and procedures that we have. So one of a few of the things we want to talk about, I'll save the active shooter for last. Raptor Reunification. In the event of a crisis, emergency, anything that causes us to shut down a school or shut down several schools, we have a reunification team. And everybody in district office has a role along with the members of the school. We're dispatched out to the school. This past fall, we partnered with our vendor, Raptor Emergency, and provided a reunification drill for staff and members of the community were able to take part of that drill. And that's the picture in the middle where you see Mr. Pierce. It's broken up into stations. Parents come. In order to be reunified with your student, you have to show ID. We have to look you up in Skyward. If there is no internet access, we have paper copies. We have everything in Ms. Bagwell's office and in the warehouse ready to go. We have cones, we have signs, we have, we line you up by alphabet. We have everything laid out.
And I will also echo that this won't happen at the school site. So if, for example, there was a school shooting, parents and community would not have access to that school. You're actually busing the students to a separate location to perform this reunification process because it is a crime scene when you have events like that happen. So even it'll be difficult for central office to get access to those facilities. So know that this is happening at a different site.
Different location now. I'm glad you brought that up. It could take anywhere from 6 hours to 12 hours to 15 hours to clear the school and get kids back with their parents. So this is a drill that we do every year. Raptor flies in and they work with us for a couple days. The first day we walk around the school, second day we do the drill. But this is the first time we've included the community in the drill.
And besides this reunification process, on all the teachers' phones, they have the ability to initiate a lockdown. They can push a button and it gets sent out to all the district staff. It gets sent to the Germantown Police Department too. We get instant notification. So it's multifaceted, and I think we've had presentations, and we'll do those in the coming school year too for the community, just to know how this system works for us, and it's very efficient. But also it's safe. It's a way to notify the paramedics or the police department, depending on your needs.
Then we'll go to the close, lock, and stay safe. Maybe 3 years ago, I don't know if you remember, the principals and Mr. Manuel and Mr. Crump, they put out the rap video to remind kids to keep the doors locked, don't open the side doors for anybody. We do have alarms on the exterior doors. If they're propped open for 3 minutes, there's a alarm that goes off that has to be turned off. So we use that as a precautionary measure as well. But building on that video, we also have window stickers and magnets which can be seen throughout schools. This year we conducted random door checks to see if doors were closed and locked. If they were, teachers' names were put into a raffle. This year, teachers won AirPod Pros. You'll see that in the in Mr. Manuel's superintendent report, a picture of some of the winners. We will continue to encourage teachers to take the easiest and most cost-effective way to keep students safe, and that's to have doors closed and locked. Doesn't cost anything to close the door and lock it. So that's one of the best things we can do. And then to finish up, active shooter training. Every year, Captain Godwin and Germantown Police Department will come in and meet with each staff to go over active shooter training. They talk about things such as high fight flight, best practices about where students should be put into class in case of a lockdown, and also just things to keep you safe until help can arrive. We get a lot of emails throughout the year that are not so nice, so when we get a nice one, I think we should share it. This email was sent from a former teacher who is teaching somewhere else now. So I'll share this email that she sent to Captain Godwin. She says, Captain Godwin, she states her name. I taught first grade at Farmington Elementary for 5 years prior to this one. I wanted to reach out and express my sincerest appreciation for the active shooter trainings you provided during my time there. I remember how much time and effort you described went into visiting, studying, and breaking down active shooter situations around the country in order to thoroughly prepare your department and local school personnel for such an unimaginable event. It was easy to sense your passion, and I am so very sorry for the grief and frustration that you must be experiencing after what took place in Texas this week. This was a couple weeks ago. I, like every teacher across the country, am feeling hopeless and brokenhearted, as well as disappointed in our nation's lack of effort to change the path we're on. As I watched the news and heard some of the grueling details, I immediately thought of you and realized how invaluable and rare those sessions were. I now teach kindergarten in a public school in Alabama where no such training was provided. As I talked with some of my teammates yesterday, I could tell that they did not know how to place students in the correct angle from the shooter location, the difference between cover and concealment, the importance of disrupting the shooter's OODA-loo if they do enter your space, or anything about the first aid required to keep a non-life-threatening gun shot wound from becoming fatal. I can only assume that there that this is a norm and that Germantown was the exception. I hope one day all teachers will be informed and equipped with that potentially life-saving information, and will have the peace of mind that comes only from their own police department coming to their school, looking them in their eyes and promising, we will be there in 4 minutes or less. We will come straight inside the building with you. We will not wait outside. You can defend yourself and your students for 4 minutes. I'm going to show you how. So this was a email about the active shooter training that we provide. Germantown Fire Department also comes in to provide training on tourniquets and first aid to keep you safe or stable until they can arrive and make the scene.
And I think I'm going to do my superintendent's report today on this topic, and just that's why you have your annual safety report in front of you. It's also posted online for our parents, community to see. It doesn't have all the details like where the reunification site would be. We don't want to give away things that would keep our students safe. I am concerned about the governor's, what I think is political posturing in the executive order that he just posted without consolidating schools. I'm fearful that we're going to experience something like we see with our early literacy. I think we have an incredible program with Saxon Phonics, with Wit and Wisdom that we have, and the Orton Gillingham training, but now they've come in and brought in a watered down version of that we're all required to do. And if you look at the governor's executive order, it talks about a state training that we're going to be required to do. I would counter that what we are seeing and the service that we're getting from our SWAT team coming into each classroom, working with each teacher about the actual physical setting in their classroom. What does that look like around the first aid? And we talk about battlefield training, how they're providing tourniquets and the kits that we have. I'm fearful that the training that they're going to require us to do is not going to be to the level that we expect here in Germantown. So I think that's something that we're going to be watching to see how that executive order is enacted. But I am very proud of what we're doing, and I'll give more detail during my superintendent's report today for the community.
I had a question, and maybe this doesn't have an answer. When we had the incident at the high school where there was a threat and the students reacted, and we had students leaving and parents coming, and did we do an assessment? What did we learn from that?
So I think for us, that was a novel experience for us. We very quickly realized during that process that we did not believe that that was a real threat, that it was a trend that was occurring nationally. But we could not send out a communication real time to our community till we fully verified and searched every bathroom and looked at the walls to make sure it wasn't ours. But we're fairly confident when that's all going down that it's not our school. This was a national trend. But because of the real-time work with or real-time world that we live in now, students are texting parents immediately when they're seeing this online, and it doesn't give the district an opportunity before we did our communication. So we've talked about that we experienced a new threat. It wasn't a threat from a shooter or an incident. We were already narrowing that down and saying that wasn't the case, but the problem was we had so many parents coming up to check out students. That in and of itself caused a problem. So we always do a post-event analysis. We talk about the fact that if we experience something like that in the future, we will go into a soft lockdown mode where you won't be allowed to check in or out students because that action, those parents flooding the campus was causing the problem.
Well, we also had students leaving campus.
Well, the challenge that you have, there are students leaving. They currently have a process as the parents send an email or contact the office that student who drove can leave the campus. So you have students that are leaving the campus. They're still taking roll of the students who are there, but it's because parents have
But
sent
in a soft
communication.
lockdown,
We would not. None of those things would be allowed to happen.
because all I could see was the memory of Jonesboro, which was more than a decade ago, but where they purposely tried to get the students to come out of the building.
So that is an example for us of something that we hadn't experienced before. We were used to dealing with real shootings or real threats, but this social media component was new for us.
Yeah. And I have some specific questions, but I don't know that it's something publicly that we share.
If you want, we can talk about those during our work session too, if we want.
Thank you, Mr. Bland.
She had to throw all this together today.
I will say,
I did rebuild all these PowerPoint presentations in
I
the
have-
last 3 hours.
And you will.
taken it
Into
upon
PowerPoint presentations. Goodness.
myself to ask kindergarten through 12th graders in the community when I see them, if Miss Angela comes to the side door, do you let me in? The answer is always no. No matter how much I smile at you, I am no, no, no.
Oh my goodness. So a lot of the things that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go over very quickly, are detailed in the annual report, but they're more so detailed in the superintendent's end of your portfolio. A lot of the work that our department does ends up satisfying both, and so I hated to put it in 4 places for sake of time. But the theme of my presentation is that we focused on building structures around effective communication this year. And so, again, just highlights. The communications department does many things, and you saw many examples in everybody else's presentations. We're often an important person at the table and on lots of collaborative teams at the district. But we're going to go back to the very beginning of the year to a happier time with rainbows and a party. No. All joking aside, you might remember some of the silly or the fun aspects of that particular event, but there's a lot that goes into that. Not just the behind the scenes, the planning, the team building when we're making that and how we get to know one another, but then the purpose behind it. And the idea too that it is a very important part of a strategic communications plan that the superintendent and I sit down and we craft each summer. Anyone want to guess what, if we were picking one word, well, really it's 3 letters, what is our theme going to be based on next year? Does anybody have any idea from listening to the other presentations? What's the one thing that we're...
Engage, empower.
PLC.
Nope. It's PLC. Yeah. And of course, we're not going to be like PLC. That does not have a marketing spin to it. Neither does, 2.4, empowering students to foster student-to-student connections. But how many of you can repeat that right now? And that is because you hear it every week. It's in the posters. It's in our internal communications. It's in our external communications. It's in a video. It is pretty much everywhere you look, even when you go to the bathroom in one of our schools. We've fashioned something that our student interns nickname the toilet posters. That's a horrible thing to say on a microphone, but highly effective. We do find that it basically takes our newsletters, the HR information that people don't like to read, like, did you know we offer mental health supports? And so they're a captive audience, and they screenshot it with their phone, and we find we found some increased engagement there, and that's a little bit the name of the game. We have extended the theme that we began at the beginning of the year into our video series starring our superintendent, our teacher recognition. So when we bring people before you at the board, we are recognizing people that are making contributions to that specific goal. We also use that to satisfy some wishes of cabinet members and the superintendent himself. The visibility planning, so making sure that the leadership team is getting out into the schools, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that in Ms. Stratton's presentation. But we use this theme to accomplish some of those goals as well. So it brought us into the schools to recognize teachers for fostering student-to-student connections and recognizing those. We also used it to hit a few other indicators in goal number 5. So an important one of increasing teacher and admin presence online. We invited our staff at the beginning of the year to use a specific hashtag to share their instances of student-to-student connections. And we had thousands of teachers and staff members posting daily. You can see this is real time that's scrolling up here. And so it hasn't even stopped. There are still people posting, wanting for the superintendent to interact with how they are fostering student-to-student connections in their classroom.
So in the superintendent's portfolio, there is a QR code that takes you to our live wall, so you can see the real-time
And
social media posts.
I taught Mr. Manuel how to just display this in his office. Number one, it's a happy thing to see. So from a marketing standpoint, I think the work that TLA is doing is incredible, but I think from a parent standpoint, if I'm deciding which school or which school district I'm going to join, and then I am able to see some of this content, and that is the nature of social media. It is, I don't know, the wild, wild west, but so many opportunities at the same time. I think that these images of our students sell the district. I think it really does tell the story of what it means to be a part of the GMSD family. Now, being in so many areas and so many different things to do, one strategy that's been identified to be able to accomplish things that are going to need to happen in years 3, 4, and 5 in the strategic plan, which can feel overwhelming for a one-person department. It became clear that the focus this year for me personally was to really expand into school level communications. In other words, none of what is going to be possible next year would be possible if a good team structure is not put into place in each of the schools. That includes everything from the website to social media to exploring new products, and to explore new products, you want to make sure that people that are doing the work are on the ground level. So we have done a lot of exploring as a team, especially with the principals. The principals have been very involved in this process. They've requested special action labs. We've made newsletters. We have made a very extensive school communications planning guide, the same way that I force Mr. Manuel to make, no, not force. I think he enjoys the work that we do, together. But the same way we have a strategic plan, our principals now have a strategic plan moving into the next year, which is going to be quite exciting, for communication specifically. Going to be quite exciting. So internal, external, social media, website, newsletters, better ways to interact with PTOs. And they've built teams. And so those teams have been identified, and the next step was to develop good training. I've got to recognize that social media changes from day to day. So we piloted a national company that does nothing but train teachers how to use social media to promote schools and school districts. It was completely amazing. We piloted it for 1 month, me and 2 other schools. So you can just see here are some of the analytics that resulted. We started with 6,529 impressions, which I felt like a rock star. When I guess I should, since that's what I do for a living, compared to our schools that were participating with us. But by the end, 35,000 just in 30 days. So that was a 30-day challenge. And hopefully you noticed in the last 2 months, the effect that this training has had on myself and our staff at the schools, at some of the schools, so only 3 of the schools. So anyhow, we've subscribed, and we're going to march that out to all of our schools. And thanks to your social media stipends for the schools, we can make these trainings, a deal for those team members. I think we talked a little bit about the slides, so I won't go into that too much. But we did offer all kinds of support. So besides strategic planning, we did a lot of one-on-one coaching with our principals this year, spent a lot of time pushing into their admin meetings. So I spent more time at the schools this year than I ever have in my 7 years here. And hopefully you saw some of the fruits of that work. So I think sometimes there are great things going on in our schools, and it's just a question of getting that information to the right channels. And so helping our school administrators really rethink some of their strategies around that. Springtastic Houston is a good example of that. And I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
So as you all know, that was one of our challenges this year, was those student-to-student connections, and having stuff quarterly at all of our schools that was going to engage our students as they were coming back, and we were fully engaged in school again. So the middle school dances that we're rolling out, or the events that you saw in the spring, and you'll see those continue over as we get ready to start school again, that continuation of those opportunities for students who may not be plugged into an activity or group, but they can be a part of that school culture. You'll see that continue, and also see it advertised on social media and in different formats.
And of course, one thing that we do very well in GMSD is we do have really big events, so go big or go home. But we were able to get even bigger, even better this year, even it being half a year of sort of pandemic protocols. The superintendent really challenged all of our schools to make sure that they were innovating as well as relying on traditional events. So we did see lots of new, what we hope to be tradition events at schools, legacy tradition events. And then, of course, all of the work around Mr. Constance's department. My department was pleased to be able to be a big support on making sure that those days went well. Increasing the digital presence. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because you can read about it, and I think you've experienced it probably like yourselves, but the podcast, training the chatbot, adding the Alexa app, enhancing the way that YouTube runs to try to increase engagement for people watching these meetings. We also, behind the scenes, what you haven't seen yet are the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work, not just myself, but the technology department, who are not here this evening, but a lot of work going into the GMSD app, the new website, the new notification system, all of which will be premiering in July. So some exciting work that you guys are going to see, and I think parents are going to love the connectivity, the one-stop shoppedness. One ring to rule them all. Yes, the app will order your child's lunch, pay your library fine, check your grades, go to Schoology, find your teacher, and all of the notifications that your school's teachers in the district are sending out as well. So it took a lot of work. It was a year's worth of work, but yes, that's coming. And then all of the weekly roundup was new this year, the GMSD Connections video. We really enjoyed that. I think the staff enjoyed it just as much as the community. And so it's something that we're going to continue. And then last, but absolutely not least, our department has a long history. I keep saying our department, and this is the we, so this is my we. And while they are our students at our school, they are just an integral part of everything that goes on. And I think secret to success, we added 2 additional positions this year, so we built out our team to 5, and then your student board representative sort of filtered in and was our 6th member on many occasions. But we did want to repurpose these students not just as children that were making copies for us or helping with data entry. We wanted to use them as ambassadors. So we are really proud that these students were able to go out and sell the schools for us. And so we're going to be developing that even further. They went to other districts in the state to talk about how to start an internship program, completely led those discussions by themselves, so before other superintendents, before another board. I think, Ryan, you got to experience what that looked like when they came for Leadership Germantown. They basically understand, I think, working in the office and knowing us and being a part of this office culture, they understand what people need to hear about the schools, and then they're living it each day. We also recruit or hire for this position a very diverse group of interests, or students with diverse groups of interests. So, we've got the band major, we've got the STEM guy, they're all, we've got the drama kid, we've got the high scholar, the overachiever. We've got a wide range of kids on this team, and they also got to attend the social media training with us this year. So they developed a framework for student takeovers that's going to go all the way down into the elementary school next year. So that's going to be very exciting, and they had some great ideas, great input this year. And not want to talk too much about this because you see it all the time now, and hopefully you're seeing some evidence. Of course, you don't get to see all of the fun animations this evening because the internet is down, but Canva is excellent. Our lawyer, our general counsel, really appreciates it because it has cut down substantially on our copyright infringement emails. because it does give our teachers access to lots of images and things that they can plug in. All of our students have access to Canva, as well as all of our teachers and staff, and so it has greatly done some enhancing and is laying some good groundwork for some of the harder to attain goals in Goal 5, like making an annual publication. So we've got some good plans moving forward with a bunch of Canva experts now in GMSD.
Are there questions before we move on to the next group?
I don't have a question. Can I make a comment?
Please do.
For our 7 years, it seems like for every year we do this, communications has been something we talked about. You have moved communications for this district in this single year by leaps and bounds. It has never been as thorough and as complete as it is now. I spend an inordinate amount of time sharing things to my school board member page because the schools are so good about getting it out. So to your department.
No, look at them.
No, in all seriousness, the work that has been done this year, and I know you've led the charge, but it's been a lot of people, the weekly roundup, the amount of information coming out of the schools. You are to be congratulated for making a huge difference for this school district this year.
And him too.
Yeah, the interns really are just extremely impressive. I talked with each of them, and you weren't in earshot, so I know it must be true, because I asked them each, what were kind of your favorite things about being at Houston, and every one of them mentioned working with you and being a part of that. So it was really special, and it really, the communications have been great this year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Today is one of my favorite meetings of the year because we really get to spend a lot of time. I'm going to take my full 15 minutes to talk about our people strategy this year. And it's really a time for us to reflect and to celebrate on all of the ways you all in the school board, Superintendent Manuel, our department heads have really helped our HR department support our schools and to help recruit, develop, and retain an exemplary staff. So when thinking about our journey to recruit new and veteran educators to support our students, HR has facilitated various opportunities for prospective teachers to get to know our GMSD students and staff. Whether it's hosting an out-of-town applicant to spend the day visiting with our GMSD schools or attending university career fairs, or even using our applicant tracking system, it's called Frontline, to advertise the available jobs, not only in our region, but across the United States. HR is working hard to recruit a variety of qualified staff for our students. This year, HR has either formed or continued partnerships with a total of 9 regional universities for our schools to host student teachers and or field experience placements. The teacher candidates have spent over a total of 728 hours observing, modeling, and learning from our GMSD exemplar teachers to improve their teaching strategies. In addition, these teacher candidates were able to share with their mentor teachers and the students in their classrooms the latest teaching strategies that are based in research best practice. GMSD was also able to take advantage of a special grant opportunity through the Tennessee State Department of Education and partnered with Tennessee State University for a Grow Your Own grant to assist 2 GMSD special education assistants to earn their special education teaching license and to serve as future SPED teachers. This collaborative approach with local universities has continued to prove beneficial for GMSD on the recruiting front, as we've just hired one of our TSU teacher candidates as a SPED teacher for the 22-23 school year, as well as 2 teacher candidates serving as end-of-the-year interim teachers through Kelly Services. In addition, the 21-22 school year saw the return of GMSD's most effective recruiting event called School Snapshots. Over the course of the week in March, all 6 of our GMSD schools hosted a meet and greet for prospective teachers. This event is always such a powerful recruiting tool because our applicants are able to truly get a feel for the people who work for GMSD, the resources that the educators have available, and the students that they are supporting. And I thought it was important for you all to hear some feedback that we received from the applicants who attended our snapshot events. So these are just a few of the emails that HR has received. I just want to reiterate that I consider the GMSD snapshots as a great opportunity to taste the work environment, culture, and administrative requirements for prospective candidates like me. I'm fascinated with the positive, professional, and productive atmosphere in the schools I have visited, and I'm eager to continue my pursuit of employment with the GMSD system. And then the third email said, "Thank you so much for your hard work and dedication for putting together the GMSD snapshots. Each school was lovely, and it made me even more excited to be a teacher knowing schools like yours exist. I would love to work for your district should the opportunity arise. The people I met over the 4 nights were wonderful. You could tell they love students, teachers, and working for Germantown." I'm so grateful that the educators in the Memphis area were able to see what we know to be true regarding the employees who work for our district and the amazing opportunities that come being a part of the GMSD work family. So we had a total of 86 teacher applicants consisting of upcoming college graduates, veteran educators who were currently working in surrounding school districts, and teachers even working in private schools who were looking to make the jump to public education attend our snapshot event. And to date, we've had 78 attendees apply to a GMSD job posting, which is a 90% return on our investment. And we've hired 10 of those attendees for the 22-23 school year. So as we transition to how GMSD has developed an exemplary staff this year, it's important to note that multiple district-level departments have played a role in providing meaningful professional development for our staff this year. Our teaching, learning, and assessment, our student services, the exceptional student education department have all taken the leads on offering numerous instructional, social emotional, safety, and technology-based PD sessions that help our teachers improve their teaching strategies. And our finance department has worked with our administrators, our financial secretaries, and the booster clubs on appropriate spending and financial supporting measures. Our communications department, which you just heard about, has helped all our staff refine their presence on social media as well. So HR's focus this year was to provide catered professional development opportunities to various cohorts of employees. And for our non-tenured teachers, we continue to refine our Blue Chip program. Currently, we have 169 non-tenured GMSD educators receiving both school and district level professional development and mentored support in one of our 5 Blue Chip cohorts. And based upon feedback from our special education Blue Chips, they indicated a need for additional training focusing on SPED-related IEP requirements and data collection. So we partnered with the Exceptional Student Education Department to offer release time throughout the year for our Year 1 SPED Blue Chips so they could meet with district office staff for that additional training and support. In addition, this was our second year to support our Year 5 Blue Chips in their culminating passion project. And as their final task, the Year 5 Blue Chips were challenged to identify either a professional interest or an opportunity for growth. We had a total of 17 Year 5 Blue Chips complete their culminating passion projects, and they focused on such topics as better mental health through yoga, college and career exploration, raising teacher morale, the art of letter writing, and then the genius hour. How can giving freedom in learning to students be beneficial for their overall growth? In May, these Year 5 Blue Chips presented their passional projects to you all, as well as district office leadership, superintendent manual, and building level admin. And by allowing our Blue Chips the autonomy to explore their professional passion, creative solutions were generated, as well as alternative viewpoints were analyzed, which ultimately led to a positive impact for their students, their colleagues, and our Gmsd community. It's worth mentioning to note that the Tennessee Department of Education offered new grant opportunities for educators to continue to grow professionally, more so during the 21-22 school year than ever before, and our Gmsd educators took full advantage of these opportunities. So HR provided and promoted information on these grant opportunities for educators to earn additional SPED, ESL, and math endorsements for free. We had 2 Gmsd educators take advantage of the add-on math endorsement, 2 educators worked on the ESL endorsement, and 3 educators took advantage of the add-on SPED endorsement. In addition, we had 6 educators, 4 of our Blue Chip mentors, and 2 of our district instructional coaches participate in a pilot mentoring program through the Tennessee Department of Education. It's called Mentors Matters, and they received a mentoring micro-credential distinction. Throughout the 21-22 school year, these educators, on top of everything else that they were doing, completed 5 mentoring modules and submitted work products focusing on topics such as building relationships, co-planning, gathering low inference evidence, conducting post-observation conferences, and real-time coaching. These Mentors Matters program, it was an impactful opportunity for our Blue Chip mentors and instructional coaches to further strengthen their skills in coaching, as well as sharpen their talent for teacher leadership. Speaking of leadership, I'm going to turn over the next slide to Mr. Manuel to let him share how his vision of growing our principals and our district office leaders came to life under our newly created leadership team.
So one of the things that we wanted to make sure of, and I'm trying to go quickly because we're running out of time, is that you can have a strategic plan, but unless people are really thinking about what that means in their day-to-day working station, then it's not going to become real. It's not going to have its own life. And so one of the things that we wanted to focus on was our principal meetings. And in the past, we were meeting with them once a month, and it was a lot of logistics where it's, hey, make sure you're completing this form, make sure you're doing your evaluations by this time, make sure you're having your post-conferences by this time. But this year, we made sure that we were having 2 different types of principal meetings. So we still continued those virtual logistic meetings, but we had in-person meetings that were about the strategic plan. And part of my goal and part of the objective that y'all have set for me is to make sure that I am raising leaders in our district and that I am giving them autonomy to become leaders. And so they would each plan that principal meeting that was on a specific strategic plan, goal, or objective. And so you saw these meetings that not only had one focus of that strategic plan goal, but we were also collaborating with them on what does that look like in your school, or where can we improve in our supports for you in the school. So it was really a collaborative experience that also was hands-on and engaging. So they were getting out and doing things. We had times where we were visiting the schools to see specific examples of programs that are successes. And I'm thinking about the ITC example. We went to Dogwood and saw how they had the interactive wall where you can actually review math facts, even though it's something that's physical. But by sharing those good practices and working with them, it really changed our perspective. And also what we do in our cabinet meeting and what we do with our principals, there's a component too about making sure that we're getting to know each other as individuals and that we do really have, and I know it's a slogan people say, we really do have that family atmosphere. And that's our goal with our administrative teams and also the central office, so that we're all pulling in the same direction and working together and know the direction that we're pulling. So this was a huge impact for us that we're going to continue moving into next year.
So investing in our Gmsd employees has been a top priority this school year. During the 21-22 school year, HR helped to create the Core Compensation Committee to establish a formal compensation review process and make recommendations to Superintendent Manuel on all title changes, pay changes, new positions, or anything else compensation-wise that may occur throughout the year. In addition, with the support of Superintendent Manuel and our Board of Education, GMSD was able to honor the work our employees gave to their students and the district by making employee compensation a top priority for our 22-23 budget season. You can see up here, these are some of the bold budgetary decisions that are now included in the 22-23 GMSD budget. Thank you to our Board of Education. And I won't read all of those, but I do want to share with you an email that HR received from one of our educators upon hearing about these budgetary recommendations. The email reads as follows. I'm convinced that very few people take the time to read and watch as the budget is presented and as it comes together, but I always do. I'm really excited about the several changes being suggested for teacher compensation, specifically the double step for those of us employed in 2021 and the retirement of the differentiated salary schedule. There are so many good changes going into this year's budget. Thanks for all of the hard work and the tireless effort to support teachers. It is both noticed and appreciated. Also in 2021, our department began taking steps to bring a health and wellness clinic to GMSD employees, their dependents, our retirees who are on our health insurance plan. And we're looking forward to keeping the board informed on our progress and ultimately celebrating the opening of the clinic during the 22-23 school year. Let's see, besides our traditional means of receiving employee feedback through the Tennessee Educator Survey, the Let's Talk messages, exit interviews, and informal meetings with employees, HR piloted a round of stay interviews during the 21-22 school year to learn more about our employees' experiences for working in GMSD. Now, we've always conducted exit interviews to determine why employees leave our district, but oftentimes that information we receive, it's not as timely because the employee has already decided to transition out of the district. And a stay interview is a way for our principals and department heads to start a discussion to learn what motivates our employees to continue to give their best professional efforts, as well as identify those pain point areas in their current scope of work. So HR randomly selected both certified and classified employees at all of our schools for our principals to conduct their stay interviews. We had a total of 42 school-based employees and 13 district office staff members participate in these interviews. And the principals focused their stay interviews by asking just 3 questions. What gets you excited about coming to work? What can we do better? Or what would make your job more satisfying? And how can we support you to do your work? And overall, the feedback from the state interviews were positive. So I have a couple of just some testimonials from the employees that participated. One participant said, "Those questions gave me a chance to share what I love most about my job and reflect on ways I can continue to better myself. I thought this was a good idea to give feedback in a relaxed atmosphere. And during the interview, I felt valued as an employee and a person." The state interviews, they only require about 15 to 20 minutes of the employee and the principal's time, and it truly was a powerful connecting tool and one that we are going to continue to implement for the 22-23 school year. Finding ways to promote a positive work environment in GMSD is a shared responsibility between our schools and district office departments. And for the 21-22 school year, HR was honored to coordinate the celebrations of our employees' professional efforts through our annual blue chip pinning ceremonies, our tenure distinctions, and our retiree receptions. And then I think we just want to end this on talking about how Mr. Manuel shares how he promotes and models connectedness and engagement opportunities, and it starts here at our district office.
So I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but part of my focus is if you're going to spend a lot of your life in a location, at a place, and you think about the hours that you are actually working, I want you to be connected. I want you to be part of the Gmsd family. And we work really hard in our cabinet meetings to make sure that we're doing different types of icebreakers. And that's another one that I farm out to the different cabinet members. It's their responsibility to plan that activity. And it can be as simple as a question about your childhood or holidays that you enjoy, but it could be something more substantial, like it could be the enneagrams, or it could be, your learning styles, or your love languages. It really changes from time to time. But we do events and we plan activities here at the central offices, and we're going to broaden this, so you're going to see, especially the Halloween one this year, that the expectation is that y'all come with your families. But something that started out as door decorating or area decorating has really turned into an incredible experience here, but it's about the bonding of the teams and the time that they spend together doing something fun. And you know that we do the float at Christmas time every year. It's more important than just the communications and the PR piece. That's really special that we have that presence and that vision for the community, but also important is the work and the time that goes together to build that. And you have people who don't have woodworking skills, or they haven't built a giant, gingerbread house before, or giant ice cream cones, but they come together and they do something that's not typical in their job scope. And those times are places where we really connect with each other. And we've seen that extend into the schools. So the activities that we do that are hands-on, that actually happen here at central office, you see those expand in some of those pictures to the school level too. They're doing the same things in their school communities. And that's important to us. We want them to feel a part of something, because a lot of times when we look at COLAs or bonuses or pay, those things lose their impact quickly. A lot of times these will have, people will think about their experience they've had in Gmsd.
That concludes my presentation.
We have one more, so we're going to go quickly. So it's going to be the operational one. So Mr. Jones, Mr. Cathy, y'all want to come up together? I know we're pushing a little bit into the work session, but hopefully it's a lighter work session that we'll be able to make up some of this time. Yes, we'll take a break after. So it's good that we have Mr. Cathy and Mr. Jones, because they'll go very quickly.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started with finance and operations under Goal 4 of our strategic plan. I just wanted to mention a few things regarding food services. That does fall under the responsibility of the finance department. SFE, or School Food Service Excellence, is our, of course, food service management company. During the year, they provided free breakfast and lunch to all students, as well as catering to district events. And one significant item, we did establish an approximate $800,000 reserve in the cafeteria fund. So that can be used to cover future subsidies or equipment that might be needed. Under Strategic Plan Connections for Goal 4, Fiscal Support, the district continues to relate both the budget document and the budget development process to the strategic plan. During the budget development process, Gmsd allocated additional resources in alignment with strategic plan goals. And these goals included engaging, challenging, and innovative academics, the Whole Child Initiative, and recruiting, developing, and retaining an exemplary staff. Financial reporting. Again, we do provide monthly financial reports to the board, the balance sheet, and the statement of revenues and expenditures. Additionally, the superintendent provides a detailed budget report annually for all funds administered in the district. The budget development process, board members are provided with a budget calendar, which includes benchmarks like needs assessments completed by district and school leaders, school board work sessions to discuss the budget, city and state approvals, and multiple readings. The district is also committed to sharing each iteration of the budget with the general public in an easy-to-read format with highlights changes prominently displayed. Additional funding for federal and state grants. We did take advantage of additional opportunities for funding through these two funding sources. These processes were very time-consuming, required careful budgeting, and required documentation. In addition, the district managed a record-setting amount of funding through Esser 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. School level engagement. As Mr. Manuel mentioned earlier about the district leadership team, we held a meeting back in January to solicit input from principals during the budget development process. Financial processes within the department. The finance department streamlined form designs and the processing of travel reimbursements, stipends, and other payments. We also updated the finance department section of the Gmsd website. And to quote Ms. Abel, such a needed change and makes submissions and compliance much easier. We're in the process of implementing a new online payment system for parents. It's called School Cash Online. And the biggest benefit of this program is that it will integrate with the school accounting program that the financial secretaries use, School Funds Online. So we'll achieve quite a bit of efficiency there. And transaction fees will decrease from 4.95% to 4.0%. I did want to mention through next year, we will continue with My School Bucks just for cafeteria operations or funds only. So we'll use two systems during the next year and then transition. Then My School Bucks will go away and we'll bring the cafeteria option into School Cash Online. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I think the symmetries of the systems is something that not only will be appreciated inside the buildings, but also outside, and so exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think 3 of the items are mine on the work session, so we'll get caught up, I promise, on our time. The last item is under Goal 4, it's long-range planning. Specifically, it relates to facilities. And so some of the strategies that we highlight every year, one is obviously the Master Facilities Plan and that planning committee. Mr. Strain sat on that committee as the board member this year. We had some additions that we didn't have before. Forrest Owens is one of those. That was former Board of Mayor and Alderman, and his skill set fits like a glove on that committee. We're very proud of the work and the document, and that's guided our district on facility projects that we've chosen. We regularly have to collaborate and coordinate with the BMA, the FAC, and all the other bodies that we have to go through to receive approvals for our projects. And out of that document, there's a wealth of information, but the big piece is the culminating 5-year priority list, where we time order and look at everything, our work order systems, all of the projects that you see that are in that plan. Another thing that we did this year is, and we're trying to make this an every 5-year practice, is we re-engaged Fleming Architects. We have a pretty good feel about what our facilities need and a strategic approach to that, but it never hurts to have another set of objective eyes and expert eyes, architects and engineers come in and take an objective look at your facilities. And through that, there were some additional projects that were identified in the plan this year. Windows at our buildings that have never had window replacements, LED lighting upgrades in our stadiums, and a host of other projects that Fleming came in and identified that are now added in the plan. So that was another good practice this year to meet that strategic plan goal. We are also in the Houston High master planning process as well. That's been a year-long process, and we are far from done. I actually had a call from a citizen today saying it doesn't feel like it's moving anywhere, and I said, well, it's going to feel that way sometimes. There's going to be that feeling. Right now, we've got Fleming working on 3 very specific tasks that are going to take time to go through specifically. Specifically, one is not moving the football field and the track. Another one is seeing if there's a way to utilize the existing A building versus demolishing it because it adds such cost to the project. And then a third one would be seeing if there's an option where we leave the tennis courts in their current location. So that's not just to wave your that's not just to wave your magic wand and move. There's a lot of architecture and engineering work to be done in order to come back, and those are just options. We really want to do all of our due diligence and look at all of these things as we go through this. But there are going to be times where it feels like it's not moving, and that's true to some extent because we have expert architects and engineers that are doing the work so that when we finally have this and we're ready to move forward, we feel good about the path that's chosen. So, but that has been another one that's been in this that's meeting our strategic plan. Our continued advocacy with our funding bodies for funding for capital improvements continues, and I know board members have been intricate part of that in advocacy. I do have good news to share, which I'm sure the board's already aware, but I want to make sure the community is aware as well, that the City of Germantown has made a commitment to funding the Riverdale roof replacement project. They've gone through their first reading of the budget. There's $500,000 committed for FY23 and another $500,000 that they say they're going to put in their FY24 budget to cover the replacement of that roof. It works okay for us because our fiscal year ends June 30th, and so we would have $500,000 available in June of next summer and $500,000 available in July. So that is all verbal. That's what we received, and the first $500,000 has gone through first reading of their budget process.
Real quick question, is that in addition to what they have discussed in terms of a regular amount every year?
No, ma'am, that is their regular amount.
That is going to be the regular amount. They've just earmarked it to something specific instead of allowing us to determine what we need it for.
That's correct. In my conversations with Mr. Heisman, he says when they give us funding, it has to be earmarked to a specific project. Now,
I find that questionable since the Shelby County government doesn't earmark what they provide for us.
They do not. They give us money and say, here's the definition of a capital improvement project. Go spend your money, but it has to fit these very specific definitions of 20 years of life. There are specific things it has to meet, but they don't tell us what projects we have to do when they give us capital funding. You're correct.
Okay, so, okay.
They give us more.
And they give us more. I understand that, yes. Okay, thank you.
And this is, for the past 2 years, we have gone through the city process to request funding for our capital projects that are in our master facilities plan. There's a handy-dandy QR code that the board can scan if they'd like to see the actual applications that were submitted to the City of Germantown for these projects. We submitted FY23 all the way out through FY28 with the projects that are in our master facilities plan. So you have a list here of all the projects that we submitted, and you can go see the specific applications that were written up if you would like to do so. And then we have a magic 19-second act if you would like to see, because this is a process that is ongoing right now, the Houston High softball complex that is under construction, and you can see it in 19 seconds where it was at the beginning to where it is now.
That is awesome. It's as nice as Mississippi.
And the same for the middle school edition. You can see where it's gone in 19 seconds from the beginning to where it is today.
Gosh, I wish you'd quit running it. Speaking of the edition.
And there you are. We did receive some good news at Houston Middle School Edition. Roofing materials did arrive last week, and that was really going to be our primary delay. So I don't want to say we're out of the woods yet, because in this crazy world of material delays and labor challenges, unforeseen circumstances may come up. But the roofing materials caused some delay, not near as much as we thought. So roofing is taking place as we speak. It started at the end of the week last week, and that building has to get into the dry, as the board knows, before we can move forward with any of the interior trades, painting, flooring, any of the things that have to happen inside. So, but that I'm hopeful that that'll push us back to a transition where we can get in our original delayed plan of Christmas break, where we can have a transition between buildings. I don't want to promise that, because I can't promise that materials are going to arrive, but roofing materials arriving had put us back on track for that. And just for convenience, I drove by yesterday. I saw the dumpster out front. And so is that ceiling tile and grid replacement?
That started literally the day after students were gone, because we don't have time on that. We've got to get that done, buttoned up, inspected, approved, and the ceiling back in place before students return. So we're pushing for a July 15th finish date on that, because after that, the building is a complete disaster, and we've got to come in and clean it, strip and wax the floors, get it back in working order before students return. So yeah, that started literally the day after students left, and it's moving at a very good clip right now.
Had some positive comments received recently from some neighbors of the construction. They're really getting excited now that they're seeing it. And these were people that came to our community, engagement opportunities and spoke and asked questions and things like that. Now that they're really getting excited, as they're really kind of seeing it really unfold.
Well, that concludes our retreat. I'm sorry we went a little over on time. Do you want to take a 5-minute break before the work session to continue?
Yes, please.